looking at the list of things that we said that we were going to work on last time, we didn't we really end up working on those, but we ended up doing a lot of other stuff that we hadn't planned on.
Yeah, I think we're at this stage where we want to do testing, but we're really excited to just keep adding features, right? We see so many things that could be done and just little things that we can polish, and we end up going for those things. We do have to go back maybe and catch up with testing later, but we've made a lot of progress and the app looks a lot nicer now.
Absolutely. We got a lot of really great feedback, and it's really hard when you get some piece of feedback that says this doesn't work or this should be better. It's hard not to just go run off and do it, right? But it's all been really good. We said we were going to test with just an enzyme. I don't think we added anything with that.
No, I haven't, at least. I tried one little component, but then I had some feature ideas and I just went off to do the features.
Yeah. We said we're going to focus on DevOps, and actually that did happen. The Vlad did a lot of like Dockerization. Matt Viking came in and kind of streamlined a few things, and Vlad set up Travis CI as well, so that definitely happened. So that was really good. That was on the plan. And then documentation, I didn't do anything. So I'm sure there's pieces that are wrong now.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We're at the stage where if we do a lot of documentation anyway, we will move so fast that then we need to go back and change the documentation anyway. So yeah, I think we'll be fine.
That's a really good point. And, as far as what changed, I just kind of measured a little bit. We've had a total of 40 merged pull requests, which is incredible.
Yeah, and 6 contributors now.
It's 6 contributors. And 29 of those pull requests were just in the last week.
Wow. So, it's moving fast.
Moving very fast.
And I think that tells you that this is a project that, people want to get on board with and they truly see the benefit of what we're doing, right? To make things easy for developers to find the topic and start the podcast, and we've also added some really nice usability stuff, right? To get that going.
Yeah, I think I said in the first video, I didn't want to work a lot on an app that nobody was interested in, and so I think we've really shown that people are interested in, and so it's been a lot of fun to work on. And I feel really bad. I've had a really busy work week, and so I haven't did hardly anything last week. And it's still amazing that every time I refresh, it was going to do something new popping in.
Yeah, it's nice. We're in the beginning stage. We're still in the honeymoon stage, right?
Yeah.
And even then, that you share this and you get a lot of feedback, right? A lot of praise, but a lot of things like, I like it, but I think this could improve and stuff. And like you're saying, right, we take that on board, and it's a great thing to not take it personally, but say actually, I want to implement this now. I want to go and do it. And then we were quickly moving towards that direction. And it turns out to, people definitely love it more today than they did a week ago. And that's great. Yep.
I see we've got 17 closed issues and 25 open right now. I've been trying to log those. I know there's at least one more I need to put in there. So as far as what we did, we said we got a lot of feedback. I don't really have my list here organized by kind of most noticeable, but I think the now playing bar is probably the most visible.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to do a quick tour of?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What's changed now? So the first thing, if you look at the app itself, the first thing you can notice probably is that the search field we had here, the search bar, is completely gone, and now we've actually put that in the header. So the benefit of this is that you can search for, well, if I can type correctly, you can search for a topic, you can find that, and as you move up and down, now this stays put there, and you can actually start a search right away without having to dismiss the previous search. So that's great. So far, this looks pretty much like last week, this particular screen, but as soon as I click on something now and it starts playing, you can see that now we get the awesome now playing. Let me pause this because it's actually, I can hear the podcast in the background. And there's a lot going on here in the screen. It's a tiny screen, but it gives you a lot of information. You have the title for the podcast, the title of the episode, the title of the podcast. Now we have a play, pause button. You can skip back 10 seconds or forward 30 seconds. You have the duration and how long it's been so far. And we've added something that users have really been craving, and that's the speed. A lot of us, including myself, actually, I usually listen to stuff at 1.5. It saves you a lot of time. And now you can do that.
Yeah, and how did you end up doing that? I thought that would have to involve a pretty big effort. You got it done in no time.
Yeah, I had to sort of look into the API for the audio and try to be smart about it. I thought it was going to be easier than it was. I thought it was just going to be a matter of having Redux sort of keep the state and then use that state dynamically to sort of link the audio and say like whatever it's on the state, you go at that speed. But it wasn't as easy because when I do that with the audio URL, for example, that works really well. But for this one, there is no attribute that you can use in HTML. So you actually need to go into JavaScript and you need to find the playback rate property and you need to set it manually to something else using JavaScript. So what I had to do then was keep some state, have an array of the sort of predefined speeds that I wanted to do, and then toggle. So every time you click, you will go to, if you're in one, you go to the next one, etc. And then when you get to the end, you go back to the first one. So that's all custom logic that I wrote. And what I do after that is a little hook. So every time I toggle something, it will grab that value that I toggled to, and it will call the JavaScript needed to change the playback rate of the audio player. And I thought I was done there, but then I realized that every time you go to the next song, it will actually reset back to one. Luckily, though, I found that there was an event that the audio player triggers called when loading starts. And that's when the episode is found and it's about to start playing. So I used that hook there. I used that event to call these, playback rate setting. So it worked pretty well.
So that's really funny. So it's about as complicated as I kind of imagined it would be. You just got it done really fast.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be easier. I got into it and I said, like, I'm not giving up. I was about to give up. When I found out it was not as easy as it seemed, and I said, no, I'm just going to like eat that frog, go do it and finish it. And I did.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So then what else do we have? So that's a lot of stuff in the Now Playing that looks really smooth. You can still add things now to your playlist just as before. And by the way, it's not a playlist. There should be a queue. We may have a playlist later on, but for now it's a queue. Now you can see results here. One tiny thing that I'm actually really proud of and I like is that I blurred the background. You can see the playlist in the background is now blurred, the queue. So this is now much easier to read. It doesn't like take focus away from the search you're currently viewing. So if I go to the playlist now, queue, I keep saying playlist, I should say queue. You can see that everything is pretty much as it was before, except that now you have the option of sorting episodes. So this button here, I think it should hopefully be pretty indicative of what it does, but it will take whatever thing you click to the top of the queue. So that will be the thing that plays next. So if I'm listening to an episode of Coding Blocks and then the next one wants to be, for example, The Road to Font Awesome, I'll click on that one, and now that one's at the very top. So I can just keep going with my day, and when Coding Blocks is done, the next one will be this Changelog Master Feed podcast.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And wanted to mention too that Adam L got the regular expressions set on the actual feed file that kind of populates the episodes there. So change that over to JavaScript. So that's why things look a lot of titles there look better. But you can still see Talk Python to be. Now, you know what? That actually has nothing to do with the regular expression. I'm sorry. So the regular expression actually works on the episode level. So if there's like episode numbers in the front, that'll take care of that. But there's another setting in that JSON file that you can use to kind of hard code a title. So I can just take that longer title and just say Talk Python to me. So that'll clean that up.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, and you can see the titles are a lot cleaner now, and it's just mainly the content, right? Without all the episode numbers and stuff. That's neat.
Yep.
We also added events, right? Event tracking stuff.
That's right. Yeah, we got Google Analytics hooked up, which has been really cool to see. And we also were able to hook up custom events there. So when someone does a particular search, we get to see what the search was for, and things like playing, pausing, removing. A couple of things I think we're sorting out. You ended up doing that with a helper?
Yeah, so initially we put that in the actions that Redux has. So every time an action was triggered, we did that. But then I decided to read up a little bit more about what was the best way of doing it. And I figured the best way is actually hooks, which the Redux term for it is actually middleware. So every time you fire a Redux action, the type of the action, or well, the whole action is sent through a middleware. So before it actually reaches the store and makes any changes, you can intercept that and you can do something with it. And that's the perfect place to intercept and say, if the type of action is play, then fire a Google Analytics event for the play thing, and it just send that information. So now what that allowed me to do is to put everything that relates to events in one single file. And in the future, if we need to add more events, it's perfectly clear to know where to go and just add a new event to that. Essentially, I have a switch statement going on there that we can add stuff to.
Yeah, it looks really nice too. It keeps the tracking code kind of out of the logic there, which has been really nice.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking to see how many actual users. Looks like we had a peak on Wednesday with 77 distinct users.
That's a lot.
Yep.
That's more than I thought.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's a nice little spike, and then it kind of tails off a little bit, and that's because we've been having some proxy problems. So files that are HTTP files are currently failing because our proxy is down, and I'm working today on getting that fixed up.
We'll get there.
Yep, but because of that, I haven't been wanting to kind of promote and stuff. I've been kind of quiet about the app because I don't want people to go check it out now, and only get one shot at it.
Yeah, it makes sense that the first impression has to be a good one. And if they find a podcast they like and it doesn't work, then it's not going to be that great. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But it's I'm really, really happy actually with the analytics stuff, because now as we add more features and as people start using the app, we're going to have a great way of measuring what's actually working and what not, right? Even like simple UI changes and stuff, they will have an impact, and we will be able to notice that.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about like what are kind of like the most important stat to watch is in there, and I think session duration is probably, or average session duration is probably the best thing to look at to know if people are like really using the app. I want to see big numbers in there. I want to see people spending hours, but I'm not quite sure how that works if like the screen goes dark or something, and I don't know if Google Analytics is still counting that as active session time. So
yeah, we might need to look into exactly how that works. But yeah, for sure, as long as it's focused, then that would be fine, right? I don't know if they go into a new tab and it will still work, or it only counts when it stops counting when you close the tab. But we need to, I guess, look into it. But it's a good measure to have, like how long do people stay in the app.
Yep. And maybe we'll be able to throw some events in there too, so we can kind of like see when the next app, or whenever it goes to the next kind of podcast, like that would be a good indication that somebody actually like finished it, and that would be a good indication that's a real use case.
Yeah, and I think that's actually very, very easy to do, because we do fire an action every time we go to the next song. So
Okay,
that's going to be fairly simple. In fact, I think it's probably already happening.
Oh, nice. All right. And on the DevOps side, mentioned Dockerization, so everything's able to run via containers if you like. And we also got Travis CI set up, so Vlad got that going. So now, actually, I had a bad habit of hitting merge on pull requests before Travis would actually finish. I need to stop doing that. It's probably a setting. Because
that happens to me as well. Yeah, because you see that it checks for conflicts, and that gets done really quickly, and it tells you can merge now. And then Travis is still working, and sometimes you don't want to wait; you just want to. But we need to.
Yeah. I don't know if it goes by Vladimir or Vlad, but he busted me because we did the standard fix. So we went through and cleaned up all the JavaScript files, so we could actually run I'm not sure if it's a PR. Hook or when it runs, but it actually prevents merges into master from Travis when somebody violates one of the lending rules. But I had merged it before Travis ran, and so something got in there and it hosed the build. And so I got a DM like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, "Oops, I was impatient."
What I've done actually from my side client-wise, so I'm using VS Code, and I set up there's an extension for standard. So my editor, even before I can push stuff, it will complain, and that's nice. It will visually show me like this is that you have one space too many here, or this line shouldn't be there. That's pretty good. Yeah,
I'll put a link to that in the description below.
Yeah.
We got the service worker. The cache name is now updating whenever the website changes, but I'm not happy with how that's working. I tried a couple things. It's been part of the myriad of frustrating things that's gone on this week. And right now it just hashes up those folders. So it introduces a new dependency in the NPM, which I don't like. It's bringing in something, especially that server side and what's otherwise a static project. but it works well and it updates the service worker, but only in the publish directory, which I like. So it's not constantly showing as like a merge conflict or a difference every time we commit. But it just grows. It's this weird, funky number. It's something that the build server should be doing, but we don't have a build server. So
eventually. But in the meantime, I must say I've actually found this very, very helpful the way it is, even though we have an extra dependency. But before, I used to always forget to bump up the service worker number, and every time I push something to master and it was ready to, I merged, I kept checking on my phone and it wasn't updating, and then why is this? And I was like, I need to bump up the thing. So then I had to create, like, I must have created at least 10 commits that say just bumped up service worker version. So
right.
Having that automated, it's actually very helpful.
Yeah, so that's been nice. So I think we talked about pretty much the kind of high level. There's a lot of other little usability fixes like the keyboard, pop it away, or like kind of nicer scrolling.
Well, that's a nice one, yeah. So before, if you press the search and type whatever, the keyboard would stay there, which covers about half of the screen on mobile phones, right? It makes it really hard to find episodes. But now, the moment you type a search and you press enter or return, it will just nicely hide that keyboard and show the content for you.
Yep.
Yeah. We added a nice gradient in the background because one of the things we did is that I limited the max width of the app to 800 pixels because otherwise when you have a very wide screen, it looks odd if you stretch the whole thing. So, but then it was looking weird because it was just this app in the middle and everything else was white. So in the meantime, to make it a little bit more cosmetic, I added a nice green and turquoise gradient in there to make it a little bit more polished.
So is it left to right or right to left? Is that what I'm seeing on your screen here?
Yeah, that one there.
Nice. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like having the lighter color on the side there. It kind of makes it look like the sun's coming in or something a little bit. Just gives it some nice texture.
Absolutely. I played around with the colors. It was tricky to find the right combination, but I think this one in particular, at least to me, it looks like it fits.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? I know that we talked about doing something where you can show details, like if you scroll down a little bit. Right now we don't have like a progress bar that you can kind of fast forward. So we're talking about like basically if you can kind of click on like somewhere in that area and kind of taking into a view that will show like the full show notes. Maybe we can even get a picture in there of the podcast and then kind of have a bar there. It'd be nice to have a bar here too. Like we looked at Spotify, that's got like a line so you can kind of see like how far along you are, but Spotify doesn't let you drag from there. So maybe there's something that we could figure out because it'd be nice to keep that feature like on the front screen there.
I think so. Yeah, it's nice to be able to navigate through the episodes that way. But yeah, for sure, we also need to work on a bigger now playing section, right? So you can either expand it or go to another screen, and it will show you episode notes and that kind of thing. Because that's also very useful.
Yep. I'll splice in some images here. What the audio player used to look like. This is so much better, and the play button's so big and nice, and compared to this little stripe, at least on my phone, and it would look totally different on yours, right? So.
Yeah, then that's the thing. Now it's uniform, right? Whatever you open it, it will look the same. And before it was using the native audio for every device, so it would look wildly different depending on which device you were using.
Yep. And I think the first part is fixing that proxy so I don't have to be embarrassed to show people and hope they don't click on an HTTP episode. Yeah.
So and I guess we go back to the promise we made last week, and we need to start writing some tests.
Yep.
That's what's next.
Yep, and there's also I'd like to add a bunch more shows, so I need to get on that. I have a nice list. There's somebody put on GitHub a while back, so I've got a ton of shows to add in there, and so that'd be cool to really get that populated. So I don't keep listening to the same PWA episodes on testing.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things I didn't mention was because there's a lot of stuff also happening in the background that maybe is not easy to see, but I've also added a lot of robustness to the app. Prop types for React, and can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So I added prop types and the full props. Yeah, it changed mic because my earphones ran out of battery. I added prop types and default props, so now that should make things a lot more robust for async and also easier to document, because if you look at the types of things, you'll know what a component is expecting. And also one thing I tried to do now that, like you said, we have this project that we can go
at our own pace. And so every time we add something new, I make sure that, okay, if there's something I can refactor, I will. And if I need to move files around so the architecture looks a bit nicer when you have to explore things, I do. So that a lot of that has been going on as well in the background.
Oh, very nice. And too, I didn't really think to mention this earlier, but with the tests, one of the problems we kind of had is like with all those pull requests coming in, like, we're not like thoroughly testing each one before they come in. You just kind of like eyeball the code and like it looks good, and you hope it doesn't break anything. But we don't have a lot of users right now, and so it's not a big deal. If something breaks, we just fix it quickly. But every week this is getting like more important, so I want to get those tests in there. And
absolutely. Well, it says there's no merge conflict, so what could go wrong, right?
That's right. That's right.
Awesome.
But we're all set up with Travis and everything to run, so we just got to get them in there. But I mean, it's looking really good. It's looking beautiful. It's really usable. Now that it's got the playing speed, I can actually listen to podcasts that are going nuts.
Now it's definitely 100% usable, even for people that need to speed up the podcast, right? So that's great.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you. So when I tell people about the app, like I'm still trying to figure out, like, should I tell them it's a beta? Should I tell them it's an alpha? Should I tell them it's an MVP? Like, where are we at now, you think?
Yeah. I mean, is there a difference between, I don't know, between a beta and an MVP at this point? I don't know. I would call it an MVP to begin with, right? Beta, I don't know. Beta sounds like there might be a lot of bugs in there, and I don't know if there are any at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, MVP sounds good to me.
All right. And version number, we talked about that a little bit. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like there's not a real strong reason for us to mess with that right now. And so we can avoid a lot of like headaches and just, we can avoid a lot of conversations about version numbers by just not having one for now.
Yeah. But that will spark up the question as to like, when are we going to say we have version 1, I guess, right? What does that mean?
Right.
What does it have to do to be version 1? I don't know. Maybe once we get the proxy fixed, that could be version 1 already.
Yeah. And, I think GitHub has some kind of some stuff around setting milestones. So maybe you could kind of like go through and like tag a couple tickets or issues and say like, if these are done, then it's version 1. So maybe we can kind of take a look at that and talk about that in the QI2 channel on CodingBlocks Slack.
Sounds good.
All right. I guess that's about it.
Okay. More shows. Did you mention also? Sorry about I'm bringing this up, but you talked about you were playing around with the fuzzy search and you found a couple of things.
Yeah, really not too happy with it. I originally started this with Elasticsearch, and I would basically kind of hit fuzzy, and you could pass a little ratio, and it seemed to work out really great. It would find spelling mistakes, and I was really happy with it. Azure Search, it looks like you pass a number, I think, between like 1 and 5 or something. I'm not really sure, but it's kind of odd how it works. It almost makes it look like the number of letters it will kind of shift. So it's like very specific to spelling mistakes. And it also is at the word level, so you can't do it on a phrase. So I can't say fuzzy search on progressive web app. I have to say fuzzy search on progressive, fuzzy search on web, fuzzy search on. And with the experiments I was doing, it just didn't really work very well. I was trying very simple like searches, and it just wasn't getting the kind of results that I expected, even at like a really basic misspelling type level.
Yeah. Okay, that's a shame. And also we can maybe look into how we can fit stuff like if you look for PWAs instead of progressive web apps, we have like tags and that kind of thing. But that's
I actually got that set up already. So I set up a bunch of synonyms. So if you type PWA or progressive web app, either one, it kind of goes to the same bucket.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's already set up. I did it for .NET and all the different ways you can spell that. I did like JS and JavaScript and a few other things. But if you or anybody else runs into anything, it's really easy to add that. And that's all checked in too. So whenever the feed uploader runs, it'll fix those.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I think that's been it. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And let's meet up again next week and see what we have.
All right, deal.